Laura laughed as she flicked her wrist dismissively and said, "You're way too ugly for me." I didn't answer right away. The comment landed heavier than she probably intended, not because I believed it, but because of how effortlessly she reduced me to a joke. I stood there with my coffee cooling in my hand while she continued talking about her plans, her mood light, her world untouched. Inside me, something old and tired tightened. She had made remarks like this before, small jabs wrapped in humor. But this one was different. It wasn't careless. It was calculated, sharp enough to hurt while leaving her conscience clean. I've always been the kind of man who chooses restraint. I prefer stillness over conflict, thought over impulse. So I didn't react. No sigh, no glare, no defense. I let the words remain between us, filling the space like an invisible chill. They drifted through the apartment we had shaped together over years. Piece by careful piece, my mind, trained to notice patterns, began quietly lining things up. The smirks, the sideways looks, the dismissals disguised as jokes. Each one now stood out clearly, like hairline cracks in a structure I had believed was solid. Laura went on with her routine, unaware that I was seeing everything with new clarity. She moved around the kitchen with her usual ease, humming softly, scrolling her phone, straightening the flowers I'd brought home the week before. She had no idea that something had shifted. In that moment, I understood that her remark wasn't just an insult. It was a statement, a careless confession that she no longer viewed me as an equal, but as someone expendable. I made my decision then. There would be no confrontation, no raised voices. My response wouldn't be dramatic. It would be intentional, quiet, and impossible to ignore once it unfolded. The next morning, the difference was immediate. Laura carried herself with the same brightness, but there was an unease beneath it, a slight stumble in her movements, a tension in her tone that hadn't existed before. She asked what I had planned for the day, her voice casual but strained, as if trying to cover something she hadn't yet identified. I met her gaze over my mug and held it just long enough for her to feel it. I hadn't mentioned her comment, yet the silence spoke for me. She sensed it. Something had changed, even if she couldn't name it. I had tolerated those subtle cuts for years, the humor that bruised quietly, the disregard that slipped by unnoticed. They had accumulated into something steady and resolute. When she asked again where I was going, I kept my reply intentionally brief. "Out," I said. Nothing more. No reassurance. No details. The calm in my voice unsettled her more than anger ever could. I saw it flash across her face, uncertainty, then fear. The first fracture in her confidence. She searched my expression, looking for a hint of playfulness, something familiar. There was none. She tried again, this time gentler. Where, though? Her words betrayed her. She was no longer in control. I gave her a small, restrained smile, not unkind, not triumphant. Just firm. "I'll be home tonight." Then I left. What had been quietly building for months had finally taken shape, and though she didn't fully grasp it yet, she was about to understand the cost of taking someone's patience for weakness. When I came back that evening, the apartment felt different. Too quiet. Laura sat stiffly on the couch, twisting the edge of the blanket in her hands. She looked up quickly when I walked in, relief crossing her face, followed by something heavier, regret perhaps, or the realization that her words hadn't vanished into nothing. "I didn't think you'd be back so soon," she said, stumbling over the sentence. It sounded more revealing than she intended. I didn't answer right away. I set my things down, removed my coat, and walked past her without rushing. The steadiness of my movements said what words didn't. I was there, but I was no longer playing the role she had grown comfortable with. She tried again, quieter now, her confidence stripped away. I didn't know where you went." The laughter from the day before was gone, replaced by vulnerability she couldn't hide. I looked at her briefly and let the silence do the work. The room held a new kind of weight, the kind that settles when someone realizes they've lost control of the narrative. Finally, her voice dropped. "I shouldn't have said that about you." Her eyes stayed on mine, open and uncertain. It wasn't just an apology, it was recognition. I didn't rush to accept it. I didn't soften the moment. I had already chosen my response the day before. Distance, composure, consequence. "I noticed," I said calmly. "That's why I left." There was no accusation in my tone, no anger, just finality. She understood then. Humor at another's expense doesn't always end in laughter. That night, she didn't joke. She didn't deflect or hide behind charm. Something between us had shifted permanently. For the first time in a long while, she saw me clearly, not as someone to dismiss, but as someone whose quiet resolve carried weight. And I realized then that respect doesn't return through arguments or pleading. It comes back when calm action makes its message unmistakably clear.